Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. Today we are having a conversation with someone who I marvel at what has happened in this individual's life and the way that she's able to express hope through her own life story, this story of transformation. This is Keri Kasabowski, and Keri recently got a new heart. She had a heart transplant, and we get to hear in depth about not only health growing up and all that led to this moment in time where she needed to get a heart transplant, but also behind the scenes, her life and those that have supported her over the years. You know, it's cool because we brought Keri onto this into this conversation because we wanted to acknowledge her as an unsung hero, someone who's shown great resiliency, someone who we're inspired by, who we see God's miraculous healing and activity in her life. And Keri was very quick to point out, no, it's unsung heroes that have been around me, that have supported me. So I think you're going to be really just encouraged, inspired, have our eyes open to the number of people who have been unsung heroes in this unsung hero's life. Friends, get ready, fasten your seatbelts. This is a good one. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. We are doing a summer series called Unsung Heroes, and this, as I said in the intro, this is going to be a conversation that I think is going to bless all of us, every single one of us. This is Keri Kasabowski, and Keri, so grateful for you, for your life, and that you're able to share a bit of your story here today.
Thank you.
Let's jump in. You've been literally given a new heart, and
Yes, a new
just
life.
what a new life and a new heart. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how this all transpired, and yeah.
So I was born with a congenital heart disease called transposition of the great arteries.
Hmm.
My blood would not oxygenate, and they had to do a major surgery called a mustard procedure in 1975 when I was 4 years old. That was a 7-hour surgery to correct, they called it correct, the flow of blood so I wouldn't be a blue baby anymore. And I lived all my life with my heart basically beating the wrong way. So my right ventricle did all the work, which is the smaller ventricle. It should be sending blood to your lungs. Instead, it was sending all the blood through my body, while my left did the work of the right. And what happens is that because the right's doing all that work, it starts to enlarge and it starts to fail. They thought I would make it to 20, or any of us who has
Wow.
this condition. They gave us to 20, but then we started reaching 30 and 40. So they had to get teams together to follow congenital heart patients in adulthood. And that's when I started going to Toronto General, and they started watching me very closely. And then they decided that in 2022, it was time for transplant.
Wow. So your life expectancy was 20 years old when you were
Yes.
growing up.
Yep.
That just seems so challenging and a difficult space to be in. What was that like for you?
Well, funny thing is, I didn't find out until I was 24
Oh, perfect.
because my mom didn't tell me.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Like my parents always said I was fixed, and they treated me like a regular kid. I took horseback riding lessons, dance lessons. I did everything that a normal kid could do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I lived a normal life,
Yeah.
and I never had any problems. It wasn't until I was 24 and I went to Toronto General for a yearly checkup, and the doctors were just floored by the stuff I could do, because I was going dancing with friends every night. Not that I was a party girl. I always was the DD because I wasn't a drinker,
Okay.
but I liked to dance.
Sure.
And, I was doing that. I was hiking. I was working a physical job at Sears, stocking shelves
Okay.
and
Yep.
merchandising. And they're like, I don't understand how you can do this, and they told me, and I was devastated because now I'm thinking I'm a ticking time bomb, right? And then I soon forgot about it because, young
Sure,
people are just like, well, whatever.
Yeah. Live
Yeah.
for today. Live your life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
Yeah.
until I got pregnant with my son, Matthew, that I really started having some heart issues. Like I fainted at work because my heart went up to about 200 beats per minute.
Mm.
Um, it was like an atrial fibrillation. And then after I had Matthew, I had nothing but like weird arrhythmias and stuff from, basically 28 years old
Yeah.
onwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking back to growing up still, your for your parents, what was this like for them? Because it must have been, to have their child be in a situation where there's not much that they could do, but just sort of let it play out and love her and support her. Like, yeah, that must. How was all of that for them from what you know?
Well, so I was put up for adoption, and my birth mother was told that there was a family waiting for me. I don't know if they lied or the family backed out because they found out how sick I was.
Uh,
I spent the first month of my life in sick kids by myself as an infant. And then I was given to a family of British expats that did foster care. They were older and they wanted to adopt me. They actually had to fight the courts because back then things weren't inclusive like they are now. So there was an age limit. So my parents had to actually fight to adopt me.
mm,
And it was thought because I had less than a 50% chance of surviving the mustard procedure, that maybe they should just let my parents, because nobody else wanted me.
mm,
So my parents adopted me, and I made it through the operation. And, they were so great. They were, my mom never left my bedside. She
mm,
never left the hospital.
mm.
I was there 7 weeks. My dad would come after work and visit every day after work, and he was a tool and die maker, so he was
Mm,
on his feet for 10 hours a
mm.
day.
Yeah.
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 So,
Incredible.
oh yeah.
Incredible. It's interesting because I was saying, Keri, before we started, that really, we see you as an unsung hero, what you've lived through, what you've survived. And we're going to talk a bit more about that
Yes.
because this transplant was such a huge deal. But you quickly pointed to other people who are the unsung heroes. It's interesting. I thought that was really,
Yeah, because,
really cool. And
like,
I think about
I
your
just
parents like that. Like,
oh,
certainly,
yeah.
eh? Yeah. Yeah.
No, and my
Yeah.
sisters. My
Yeah.
sisters, they took good care of me too, and, my parents have passed on now.
Mm,
I am in touch with my birth mother,
mm.
and she's very supportive, but because she wasn't there during the operation, there's a lot like, during my first
Sure.
operation when I
Yeah.
was a kid, there's a lot of stuff she didn't understand, and it
Mm,
was very hard for her.
hmm.
Um, but I mean, that's it is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't see myself as a hero because I've lived with this all my life,
Mm,
you know? A lot of people say, "Why me?" when something happens like
mm,
that. "Why was I born like this?" And are bitter about it. But I thought, like, why not me?
mm,
You know,
mm.
God chose me for a reason
Mm,
to
mm,
carry this on my shoulders,
mhm,
and I
mhm,
think it's because he knew that I'd have strength and poise.
What a let's love your spirit, love your attitude,
Thanks.
Carrie. My goodness, it's very moving. Um, so things came to a point where you needed a transplant, and walk us through that process if you would, because that's quite a process, and there's a waiting period, and you're not sure what's going to happen, though you need it. There's
Yes,
never any guarantees. We hear these stories, and I think we all know that sometimes it doesn't work out for people,
it's true.
and so grateful that it has for you. But
Thank
maybe
you.
kind of walk us through this, yeah,
Sure.
how it all happened.
So it started in 2013, actually. I was overweight. I was smoking. Um, I had a really toxic job. Um, my mom was diagnosed with dementia. My dad passed away the same week. So I was really in a bad state, like depressed and
Mm,
in a dark place. And my heart started failing. So the doctor said, if you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to die by the time you're 40. So I changed my lifestyle. I quit smoking on January 30th at 7
mm.
p.m. And I remember it to the
Wow, you
day.
remember the time?
I
Yeah,
remember the
yeah.
time.
Wow.
I started working out. I started not eating junk food. I ate clean food, salmon, chicken, vegetables,
Mm,
you know, uh, not much bread on Fridays.
hmm.
Um, and I lost 67 pounds
Incredible.
by 2016. And that's when Dr. Oshlin, he was so excited about it. He gave me a hug. He turned to his fellow and he says, "It's people like this. This is why we do this."
Wow.
And he said, "You know what, Keri? You worked so hard that I think that you'll be a good candidate for a transplant." And that was the first time it was ever mentioned. And I remember my mom said the worst thing that was going to happen to me when I was adult would be that I needed a pacemaker.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, a transplant?
Mm.
You got to be kidding me.
That's a little bit up from a
Yeah,
pacemaker.
right?
Wow.
So then in 2017, I started getting ill because I was on some medication that actually poisoned my thyroid. They didn't think it was my thyroid. They thought it was my heart because the thyroid was so hyperactive that my heart started failing. They did all the tests to start the transplant process, realized that it was my thyroid, took my thyroid out. I bounced right back. I was right back to working out an hour and a half a day, in the morning before
Mhm.
work. Everything was fine. Then COVID hit in late 2019, 2020,
Mhm.
and all the gyms closed. And, I didn't have the discipline to try and work out at home. I did
Mhm.
try, but I just, I was so down about COVID because I'm a person who likes to go out, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't like being locked in. I mean, poor me, but
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
is what it is. So, um, I stopped working out, unfortunately, and I really think that's what started my downward spiral. Because in 2021, I actually had a stroke. It was a pretty bad stroke, but they managed to save me in time to
Mhm.
that there was no residual effect.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in 2022 is when I had an episode of VTAC where my heart went to 325 beats per minute, which is actually cardiac arrest. And at this point, I did have an ICD pacemaker, and it shocked me back into rhythm. And that's when my doctor, Dr. Roche, said that it was time for transplant.
Mm.
And, she gave me a couple months to see if I bounced back like I usually do because they were so used to me bouncing back.
Mm.
But by September, I was in a lot of trouble.
Mm.
I was very, very sick.
Mm.
So I spent 3 weeks in the hospital being tested for everything.
Okay.
They test you for every kind of cancer. So mammogram, colonoscopy, bone density,
Mhm.
like all that. Um, Lots of blood work, lots of CT scans, chest, lung, um, abdomen, lots of tests,
Mm.
venografts, So I went through the whole deal that took
Mm.
3 weeks. And then in November, I had one of those pulmonary edemas that I told you about. And what happens with that is that your heart starts failing and your lung fills up with blood and fluid and you can't breathe. So they have to put you on a BiPAP machine and pump you with fluid retention, like
Mm.
fluid pills,
Yeah.
well, by the IV. It's called Lasix, um, and give you amiodarone in IV for like there's about 4 or 5 IV medications that they have to put
Yeah.
to, and you're in the ICU. So they let me go home at Christmas, right? Because they wanted me to have, just in case a
Mhm.
last Christmas at home.
Mm.
But but I ended up catching COVID.
No. At home.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
did have a couple of visitors, I'll admit. Um,
Sure.
and I hadn't been wearing a mask because I hadn't had a
Yeah.
transplant. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I did catch COVID, which actually put a delay on listing me because I was
Mm.
supposed to be listed on January 19th, but because of COVID, they had to wait 8 weeks.
Okay.
So they listed me on March 1st.
Wow.
And when I had COVID, it turned into pneumonia and I had a pulmonary edema again. And that's what put me in the hospital on January 17th, 2 days before I was supposed to be listed.
Mm.
And that's where I lived for 4 months.
Wow. Wow. And how did it work as far as getting a transplant? And what was it like getting that news? Because you would have been waiting and wondering and hoping, but not sure what's going to happen. And then just I know it doesn't always take either. And so it
Yeah.
was, you know, in many ways miraculous that it takes, and you're so well now. Yeah. So just how it came about, but then the process after that as well.
So I was waiting in the hospital, and like, you're on a list, and the person has to match precisely. They have to be the same stature, same height. Weight's not that big of a deal. Um, they have to have the same antibodies as you and stuff like that. So the doctor had said there was a few offers, but they weren't a match for me. So you just wait. You just wait and wait. And you sit there and you try and be as boring as you can
Mm.
because, excitement's not going to do
Mm.
anything. I exercised in the hospital. I did
Really?
squats, walks, used tension bands to keep my legs
Okay.
strong and keep my body strong for the operation. Yet I kept having these pulmonary edemas, um, for stupid reasons, emotional or
Mm.
or driven by eating because my heart couldn't support my digestive system anymore. And then one day the doctor came in and he's like, "This is a social visit. Can do you have your power of attorney?" I just thought it was more red tape, right? So I'm like, "Yeah, it's over there." And he's like, "Oh, this part's not signed. Let me sign it." And I go, "Okay." I didn't think anything of it. Like, I
Wow.
just thought, you know. And then I was talking to my brother-in-law on the phone, and the doctor came back with Nurse Barb, who was a huge support to me, and Dr. Betty, who was a fellow. And they all kind like, I had my curtains closed, and they all kind of did one of these with the curtains,
Oh.
and they said, "You know why we're here, right?" And I'm like, "No." Like, and like, honestly, I had no feeling.
Yeah.
I I had a feeling it might happen before Easter. I can't explain that, but I didn't know that day. I didn't have a feeling that day.
Okay.
So this is the 4th of April, and Dr. Alonso, he says, "We have a heart for you. We have the perfect heart for you."
What did you do?
I
Oh,
just went, like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, kind of like,
yeah.
I was excited, but a real calm came over me.
Okay.
Like, usually I would get one
Yeah.
of those pulmonary
Yeah.
edemas because my adrenaline would start
Sure.
running,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but a real calm came over me. I did ask for 2 Ativan just in case, right? To keep me, like, level. But yeah, I was so
Yeah.
calm, and they were so excited because Dr. Alonso was such a support. Like, I
Mm.
can't even say enough about him. Um, he actually was so excited that he personally portered me down to the ICU to get ready,
Mm.
right? And I mean, this is the director of heart failure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so this was a big deal for them too, you
Yeah,
know?
it
Yeah.
was. It
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, you mentioned about just this peace overcame you, Carrie. Faith, I know, was a big um, support strength for you. Talk,
yes.
talk to us a bit about how that was helpful, how your faith helped you through this, how your faith was impacted by this, your relationship with God through what you experienced
Sure.
in this, getting a new heart, a new
S-
life.
So I've always believed in Jesus and God. Um, my mom used to tell me that when I had the mustard procedure, Jesus was at my bedside and Jesus was in
Mm,
the OR.
mm,
And I always believed her.
mm,
So I've always prayed, but I was never much of a churchgoer. And then when I started getting sick, I was like, I have to do more for my faith.
mm,
Because I need God's help.
mm,
I need Jesus's help. And I haven't been there for them. So I need to be there for them too, if I want their help.
mhm,
And, through connections with friends like my friend Susan, um, and uh, people at the hospital. There was a gentleman named Stefan. He was part of the spiritual care team. Um, they really helped me build on my faith. And then when I reached out to this church, for a prayer request, and you guys sent me that prayer shawl,
mm.
I wore that every day at the
Wow.
hospital.
Wow.
I slept in it actually,
Hmm.
wrapped in it.
Hmm.
Um, and I read devotionals every day. Um, And my friend Susan would send me quotes and verses and stuff that were uplifting and encouraging for me to fight through um, the whole process. And I would pray every day, and I would actually collect prayers and text them to myself.
Mm,
Like look online for good
right.
prayers that, like for help,
Mm,
help with health and stuff.
mm,
And, I would try and memorize them.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I
Beautiful.
prayed every day, and my faith just grew. And even at the darkest times, like when I was really sick and I had the BiPAP machine on, I just knew that Jesus was gonna help
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's so cool. But just grateful for that. Grateful for
thank
your
you.
health, and just also for this beautiful relationship with Jesus. Jesus being, I love that image of Jesus being with you
Yes.
then and now in that hospital, and certainly as you enter this new life that you've been given.
Well, I have to believe my
Yeah,
mom,
yeah,
right? My
absolutely.
mom would not lie to me.
That's great. That's great. Well, we were talking about unsung heroes a little bit.
Yes.
You mentioned Nurse Barb and Dr. Alonso.
Ugh.
What did they do specifically that was so helpful for you?
Nurse Barb, when I was sick in 2017 is when I first met her. She always was supportive of me. She would stay in touch with me. She would visit me if I was in the hospital. She would come and check on me. Uh, Sometimes she'd bring me treats, and she would just be there for me. You know, um, I could talk to her. And it's funny. She would always show up at the right time, like meaning that if I was having one of those pulmonary edemas,
Mm,
it's not like she knew,
mm,
but for some reason she'd be swinging by my room to check on me,
mm,
and she would keep me calm. Sometimes if I needed a procedure, which I have a lot of medical anxiety, she would come and hold my hand while
mhm,
they did whatever they needed to do, like a pick line or stuff like that. Um, she's just been amazing,
mm.
right? Now,
Wow.
Dr. Alonso, he's the director of heart failure. Um, he, I don't think he ever stops working. I think he works 28 hours a day.
Mm,
And he was always at the hospital, and he always came to check on me. And I just remember one particularly bad pulmonary edema. I was thinking, okay, that's it. They're going to take me off the list, like in my mind. And he knew I was thinking that. And he's like, Keri, focus on me. He goes, don't think like that. Just look in my eyes and breathe and breathe. And he was like, he believed in me,
mm,
Um, my other doctor, she she wasn't so sure.
mm,
And I'm not putting her down for that. She was a great doctor. She got the ball rolling, and
mhm,
she was very supportive, and she was always happy when I was doing great and stuff. But sometimes I think she would panic a little when she saw me really sick,
mm,
and she told me that she thought we missed the window
mm.
of opportunity for transplant, and put me on a partial do not resuscitate. And Dr. Alonso, he always believed in me.
That's
I
amazing.
always felt
Mm.
like he believed in me.
Wow, wow. There's so many definitions, so many rationale for what makes someone an unsung hero. But as you're talking, Carrie, I think definitely those people who believe in us and give us that kind of confidence and hope. That's amazing.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
well, thank you, Carrie. Just an incredible story, and
Thank
just
you.
feel on like we're on sacred ground, holy ground here. As you share, we'd love to say a prayer for you
Oh,
before
sure.
we close. Cool. Let's do that. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that. Yeah. Oh God, we're always on holy ground when you're on your ground, and just feel that today. This is just an unbelievable, beautiful, incredible, miraculous story. We thank you for not only giving Carrie life, but giving her new life, a new heart, another chance. And we thank you for the hero that she is to us, the resiliency that you have given her, that she has shown and exhibited over all these years. But we also thank you for the unsung heroes that have supported her all the way along. Her parents, her sisters, her family, friends. We thank you for Nurse Barb and Dr. Alonso, and just the little things that they did, the big things like believing in Carrie and supporting her so fully. So we thank you for those we've named and those who we haven't, who absolutely have played a significant part in Keri's life. We thank you for the unsung heroes in our lives. May we all be inspired to reach out to them and give them thanks as we hear this today. And ultimately, we thank you for the beautiful gift of life that you bless each of us with, and that new life that we have in you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you again, Keri.
No
So
problem.
much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Good News Podcast. Always great to be with you. We're excited about this series, Unsung Heroes. Hope you can join us next week as we explore another amazing story that will inspire and encourage us all. Thanks so much, everyone. Okay, Keri said something in this conversation that absolutely intrigued me, grabbed me, just made me really stop and think, wow, that's special for you to say that. And that was the part, I mean, there were so many parts like that in this conversation. This is incredible. It's almost too good to be true. It's almost surreal that this could be, that someone could get a heart transplant and not only survive, but thrive the way that Keri is. Like she is so full of life in so many ways. There's such a good future that God has prepared for her. But the one part that really hit me was when Keri said, I started to ask the question, instead of why me, why not me? And that's a very interesting spin to me. I think we live in a world where it's easy for people to just stay stuck in their own pain and brokenness and ask the question why. And understandably so, life can be really hard. We all can do it. I know I've done that at different moments in my life. But what I love about Keri's response to that is, no, it's not why me, it's why not me. There is a reality of pain and brokenness in our world. Life is hard, not just for her, for me, but for all of us. And there's just sort of an acknowledgement of that in that question. But then also, okay, what does this make possible? What might God do in the midst of this pain and challenge that I've experienced or am experiencing? So just a beautiful spirit that shift in questioning can really take us down a new road, a different road. And so, man, yeah, Keri's been given a new heart, but she's been given even more than that. She's been given a new life, a new mindset, a new spirit. And so how exciting to be on this journey with Keri. I want to say thanks again to not only Keri, but to the unsung heroes in her life. She mentioned so many, from her parents to the doctors and nurses that cared for her, to her family, her sisters. I'm sure there's many, many others. Thank you. If you're hearing this, maybe you're a friend on Facebook that has encouraged Keri over the past year especially. You know who you are. Thank you for being an unsung hero in Keri's life. But also want to mention the donor. Someone gave their heart. Someone intentionally donated their organs. And as a result, not only does Keri have new life, but there's a number of people who have experienced new life because of that. So want to encourage us, if we haven't already, that this is a great thing for us to do too. That when we're not able to use our organs, to recognize that God has created a world where the incredible medical teams that are able to do this can use our organs to give people who might otherwise lose their life a new life. That in itself, I think, is encouraging and exciting and inspiring, and just encourage us to think about doing that ourselves as well. We give thanks for these things, and man, we're just so blessed to share life with you and these conversations with you. Thanks for being a part of the Good News Podcast family, friends. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Good News with Jamie Holtom. And if you subscribe, then it will make sure that you get noticed whenever a new episode is released. We deeply appreciate you and grateful that we get to share these kinds of conversations together. God bless you and be with you. Can't wait to see you again real soon.